Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Politics as Usual with the Ultiverse. It's me, Ayub, and
Mohsin.
So today we're going to talk about a number of things, and we're going to kick off with Prime Minister David Cameron's New Year's message or New Year's speech, whatever you want to call it. Quite an interesting one, this. He covered a number of things, nothing out of the ordinary to be honest, but just to summarise some of the points. So he starts off talking about how our economy is growing and it's strong, and he makes a point of the fact that there's a majority government in power, and Britain begins the new year with renewed strength. No New Year's resolutions, just an ongoing resolve to deliver what we promised. Oh really? Still waiting for a lot of promises to be delivered on from politicians. I don't think I believe him in anything that he's saying there. But then he goes on to emphasise security. He says security at every stage of your life is shaping up a certain type of agenda, in my view. But he then goes on to talk about 31 million people will begin the year in work, more than any in our history, apparently. I've not looked at the figures, and I know better than to take the Prime Minister's word for it. 6 million children will start the new term at a good or outstanding school. So this is good and outstanding according to the government's own ratings, the Ofsted shenanigans. And then he goes on to state, after a lot of other stuff that doesn't interest me, he said, we also promised something else, giving you a say on Europe.
Giving what, sorry?
Giving you a say on Europe.
Okay.
Public. Now, we are delivering on that promise. I don't know how he's doing that, because the last time he went to Angela Merkel and the rest of Europe, they basically told him to get lost. There will be an in-out referendum by the end of 2017 to be written into the law of the land. So they're going to pose a question to us as to whether we think we should stay in Europe or not.
You know, that there was actually a little bit of a debate as to whether they should allow the general public and everybody to vote on that, or just certain people.
I mean, I think generally speaking, the public don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
But a lot of them probably like to think they do.
Here's the thing. If they're going to do it at the end of the year, it means propaganda starts now.
Exactly.
So the stay in start theirs, and those who say leave start theirs.
But listen to this. Look what he says next. There's just one thing that drives me. What is best for the national interest of our country? But in the end, it will be for you to decide. Is our economic and national security in a dangerous world better protected by being in or out?
I don't know.
So there's a reason why he's associating being in and out of Europe with the economy and national.
Out.
Yeah, exactly.
But the whole refugee crisis only started recently. This Europe debate's been going on for a long time.
It has, yeah, but I haven't seen him talk about national security.
Yeah, he's just putting a straw man argument together.
It's normally economy that drives the decision as to whether we should be in or not. Yeah. From my point of view, I'm still looking into a lot of things to do with the EU. What I mean by that is I'm trying to read between the lines of what the politicians are actually saying. But I do agree that if we're going to be in it, it needs to be a benefit to us. You can't just be in there and it's one-way traffic.
Yeah, the arguments previously to stay in have been that we have invested so much money into other countries. It's time now for us to start getting dividends from those investments. And if we were to leave Europe, all that investment's just gone down the drain.
Yeah, and people that are coming in from the far east of Europe have been benefiting from our welfare system. So that's another thing that irks them, I think.
Yeah, well, what welfare system? They've kind of got rid of the whole thing, haven't they? What they've done with the welfare system is if people are coming from other European countries, they have to have been here for X amount of years, I think it's 5 years or something, to start. They can't basically come straight away and start claiming benefits. So they have got rid of, some of those menacing issues.
But they want to take it further. But I think we'll have another discussion just on the EU. It's quite a deep thing. But moving on with some of the other things you said.
Mind you, this was the one where a hashtag started, "You ain't no Christian, bruv." Is that the same? I can't remember what he said though.
Who?
There was a hashtag on Twitter. Remember when that attack happened in Leytonstone?
Yeah.
And that kid said, "You ain't no Muslim, bruv," and he did a speech and he said the same thing. There was a hashtag on Twitter about Cameron, "You ain't no Christian, bruv." So he might have tried to be preachy or something, and people are like, "Come off it, sunshine."
I don't know. So he then goes on to say, we also go into the year confronting some deep social problems, ones that have blighted our country for too long. I want 2016 to be the time when we really start to conquer them. A crucial year in this great turnaround decade. Because with economic renewal and social reform, we can make everyone's lives more secure. So there's some, trends here, or a thread of security that's underlying what he's talking about. It's kind of digging into people's sentiments around security. It's one of the things, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
People need shelter, they need clothing.
Yeah, safety of life is number one, obviously, exactly. But then it's all a ploy on taking away our rights from one side and giving us a sense of security on the other.
Yeah,
so they will pass laws on, privacy, that they can check our...
so we'll come on to that.
Private conversations.
He talks about national security being threatened as well. So just before that, he talks about... so if you're one of the many hardworking young people locked out of the housing market, we will deliver the homes that will help lead you to your own front door. I never understand why people feel the need to have their own home and why the government's always trying to come up with some sort of scheme, or hatch some scheme that makes people a homeowner.
No, well, it's important for young people, couples, whether married or otherwise, starting a family. They obviously need a home, don't they?
A roof over your head.
Yeah.
But you can have a flat.
It's still a home, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still a home, but it's talking about the housing market in particular.
Right, yeah.
And given the fact that these politicians are always in bed with the banks,
yeah,
seems to be pointing one way.
I remember there was some conspiracy theory almost that was exposed by what was that comedian called? Russell Brand.
Russell Brand?
Yeah, Russell Brand on his YouTube channel. He did a video...
on the truths?
Yeah, on the truths. He did a video about one of David Cameron's friends who'd been buying out, blocks of council houses very cheap and turning them into luxury apartments and things like that. So passing a law like that, it helps his friends, his rich friends who are building houses. Because what happened before early on in the Conservative government's reign was the housing market almost collapsed, didn't it? Where you had housing projects had just stopped. People had just gone home because they thought, well, flipping heck, no one's buying these houses. And, they've got equipment on hire, whatever, they just send their equipment back. The houses were just standing there. And I remember around Oldham, where I live, that probably still to this day, there's some estates where there's not, some houses are still unoccupied. Derelict. And new builds. Just because people couldn't afford to buy them, the bank interest rate was so high that there's a scheme, and I think it still is around, where if you can put down as a first-time buyer, you can put down 5%. The government will put the other 20% down for you on a zero interest.
Right.
And so they make it easier for you to purchase a house and stuff. But it's another one of them, they'll give from one hand but take away from another. So they'll give to the young people trying to get into the housing market, buy their first house. But then, you not got a job? Yeah, screw you. We're going to take your benefits. You're disabled? Yeah, oh well, we're going to take your benefits. What was it? The elderly? Yeah, well, you got nobody to speak on your behalf. We're going to take your benefits.
And I'm just hypothesizing anyway at the moment with respect to the housing. But I mean, even if you're young and new to the market, the moment you get a mortgage,
you're a slave to the system.
Yeah, you're a slave. I've been refusing to get a mortgage for like 10 years. I'm not going to get a mortgage.
Yeah, but how else?
I piss a lot of people off with that, but anyway.
Yeah, how else are you supposed to actually get into the housing market? You're going to rent for the rest of your life, which is just a lot more expensive. You know.
Yeah, it kind of feels like, the government bailed out the banks, right? Remember, in 2008?
Yeah.
With near 0% interest on the loans that the government gave them.
Yeah.
When it comes to consumer lending, you don't get the same deal.
Yeah, obviously. We got no power, have we? Why would we get the same deal?
Yeah.
Plus, we weren't boys with these politicians from back in the day, so we got no rights.
Yeah, particularly Conservative Party.
Yeah. God, what else has been happening?
So, the other thing you mentioned is, if you're off school or out of work, trapped in an underworld of addiction, abuse, crime and chaos, we will sweep away state failure and help give you stability. If your dreams have been dashed simply because of who you are, we will fight discrimination and deliver real opportunity to help lay your path to success.
You know what? I used to work in youth work, and it was this bloody government that took all that funding away, which got me laid off from my job. Yeah. And this is exactly the type of work we used to do. There was one project I didn't work. I worked closely with them. People who were addicted to drugs and things like that. They used to give them clean needles because they knew they're not going to quit overnight, but at least let's prevent them from getting HIV by sharing needles and things like that. That project got shut down. So what are these individuals going to do who are addicted to drugs? They're going to go back to sharing needles. So they're the ones who cut all that funding from different types of youth projects in the first place, and now, I've got an idea, let's do this. Were you the idiots who stopped it in the first place?
So far it sounds like he's listing every single problem and saying, yeah, we're going to solve them.
Yeah, but they kind of caused the problem in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Then he moves on to another social problem. Yeah. And we will take on another social problem too. When our national security is threatened by a seething hatred of the West, one that turns people against their country and can even turn them into murderous extremists. I want us to be very clear. You will not defeat us, and we will not just confront the violence and the terror. We will take on their underlying poisonous narrative of grievance and resentment. We will come down hard on those who create the conditions for that narrative to flourish, and we will have greater confidence indeed, we will revel in our way of life.
So, alright, I don't see much of an issue with most of it except for the poisonous narrative of grievance. As in, if you've got a legitimate grievance against us, how flipping dare you? And, I was listening to an interview on Al Jazeera by the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency in America. He was asked, where did ISIS come from? Who created ISIS? And basically admitted it was the war in Iraq, which we kind of started. So, you're kind of telling them, look, I know we made you like this, but we don't care. And we're going to attack you guys again. And there's going to be civilian casualties. And again, we really don't care. The whole thing is, hypocrisy.
Yeah, and I agree with what he's saying, but when you read between the lines, there's something a bit more sinister going on.
Exactly,
I feel.
Yeah.
He says, because if you walk our streets, learn in our schools, benefit from our society, you sign up to our values, freedom, tolerance, responsibility, loyalty. I don't disagree with any of that.
Yeah, no, that's it. Kind of sounds like philosopher John Locke. He had the whole the state is your father. So if you are willing to live in your father's house kind of thing, you were saying, then you got to comply to his rules. And he gave an example. If you go and walk out onto the highway As in, how do I agree? Do I sign some document or something? And he said, no, as long as you've gone out and took benefit from the state in some way, then you have agreed. So I definitely agree with that. Yeah, if you benefit from the state in some way, whether it be the, claiming benefits, or you've got a job, and you're taking from the NHS or whatever it might be, you're in the state, you can't turn around and attack that state, or
Yeah, so we know who he's referring to, right?
Yeah.
The people who born and bred here.
Yeah, my
benefit.
fear is though, okay, there may be some individuals, and apparently there's been apparently up to 700 who have left this country and joined ISIS, and obviously there are still, on our last podcast we spoke about one individual who tried to attack in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
But my fear is he's going to expand this to include a massive group of people who are actually not extreme.
Yeah, just that thing on grievance.
Yeah.
Does it?
So now the thing is, what happened to my freedom of speech, which has been a fear of the, the prevent strategy, which is going to be rolled out this year, that, they're going to stop the whole freedom of speech. If you got a grievance against the government, you disagree with, for example, the war in Syria, the one they started, recently, the bombing campaign,
Mm-hmm.
You could be deemed an extremist. But we need to see, this is what I've read in the media. I need to see when the strategy comes out and kind of read it in more
So what
detail.
if I raise a concern
Yeah,
about the fact that the arms trade is flourishing,
yeah,
and there's always a war that seems to fuel it.
yeah.
If I express a grievance on that,
Hmm.
being a Muslim, am I in trouble?
Being a Muslim, you're in trouble, man. You go to Guantanamo. If you were Muslim, you might get away with it. But here's the thing. What you're saying is true, but it's the same type of thing. It's the same type of tool used by the recruiters for extremism. So there needs to be a more nuanced and kind of intelligent look into the matter. You can't just say, anybody who disagrees with the state, well, screw you, mate, you're going to Guantanamo Bay. You can't do something like that. You have to be smart about it. You can't just deem people as extremists for exercising their freedom of speech.
It just seems like he's got the wheels in motion. Well, the wheels have been in motion for a while in terms of propaganda.
Yeah, yes.
To just take away our civil liberties.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, he's saying he wants to address this problem that we have at home.
Yeah.
Can they really be trusted?
Yeah.
To settle it? Because how much should the British people actually be worried about that problem?
Problem of what? Extremism?
Yeah.
At home? Well, no, I think the security services have been doing a good job. Obviously, the most recent one was the Leytonstone one. Thankfully, there's not many guns in this country. You certainly can't have a gun legally in this country. So there was a knife attack. Still not nice. There wasn't, the one before that I remember was what was that guy called? Them two guys in London. They attacked the soldier, Lee Rigby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one before that I remember. So you don't get it too often, but even one is too much.
No, it is definitely. But we do have more knife attacks.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But
a lot of it, if you just look at knife attack statistics, most of it's probably like just crime in general. Nothing to do with extremism.
And the government statistics, again, reckon crime in general has reduced.
Yeah, that's a fib.
Well, I mean, I just feel as though there's undertones, particularly in this speech of, I mean, he's talking about security. It implies that there's a fear. And when you couple that with the media narrative, it leads to preposterous, unconscious biases in people where they will associate a whole group of people with a negative.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have a social experiment on that, hopefully in the summer. We'll explore that in further detail. Anyway, moving on from the good old Prime Minister to his more recent nemesis, Jeremy Corbyn. So he's had a reshuffle recently, or he's talking about reshuffle.
He's
rather.
threatening
He's
a
not done it.
reshuffle.
Yeah, he's not done it. He wants to do it. It's been portrayed as a revenge reshuffle. What do you think about this?
It's interesting. I read the story. What Peter Mandelson,
Yeah.
Tony Blair's right hand man.
Yep.
He
See where this is going.
wrote an article, and that whole narrative about we the Labour moderates and him, as in Jeremy Corbyn, is therefore an extremist if we're the moderates. So they've been doing that whole thing where there are some Labour moderates who believe that Jeremy Corbyn should be kicked out of the party. That whole thing. But they're not yet calling him an extremist. But I think they will start soon. And Peter Mandelson, he said, why did he threaten a reshuffle? Why not say yes or no? Why scare people for 2 weeks, kind of thing, But I think, it's his right to
Every
have a
leader does
reshuffle.
that, right?
Why not?
When a new leader comes in, into corporation, for instance, they tend to reshuffle.
You're gonna bring a team on board who you can work with. You're not gonna have a bunch of jackasses who keep opposing you at every turn. Everything you try to do,
That's just so retarded.
Yeah.
To even suggest that you should be working with a team that you have, even though half of them, more than half of them,
are dissenters.
And they're not on board with your vision.
So with Jeremy Corbyn being the leader of the Labour Party and also having been voted in with a massive, amount of votes, and there was, I think, 400,000 or some ridiculous number of new voters as well, just came on board just to vote for him. If he's got such a big writ, he's got such a big group of people behind him, why not allow him to reshuffle? Why pretend that you are trying to save the Labour Party by getting rid of him? What's actually going on is Peter Mandelson, being Tony Blair's right-hand man, former right-hand man, he's trying to save Tony Blair's skin. Because Jeremy Corbyn, as we know, has said as soon as the, what's the report called? The Chilcot inquiry, as soon as that comes out, we're going to try to get Tony Blair into the International Criminal Court. And there was something interesting which I read, which I thought was some more Tony Blair propaganda. And I mean, you can scream conspiracy at me or whatever, but what happened is the New York posted an article blaming Saddam Hussein for ISIS. It said, he had started to put pieces together to make this kind of Islamist organization, when we know the Ba'athist Party was actually very secular. But anyway, and so they say
just ignore that bit.
Yeah, just ignore that bit. Yeah, and so they say he brought all these Islamists on board, and he was putting the pieces together to form a group called ISIS. Well, not called ISIS, but it's because of him that they joined together, and so they're trying to legitimize again, because the whole we didn't find any weapons of mass destruction. We got to find some blag. And so, that's what was going on. It was, The
other thing I picked up on is there's talk at the moment about shadow ministers urging the Labour Party to focus on the Tory challenge, as they're calling it, quote unquote, instead of their own internal challenges. So they feel Corbyn is shifting the focus from what their real aim should be, i.e. defeating the Tories.
Right.
I have a problem with that mentality. I mean, doesn't your focus as a politician need to be serving the people that you represent?
Well, for someone like Jeremy Corbyn, yes. But for what we consider politicians and what we're used to, then no. Their focus is solely on making their paymasters happy in some way. So
yeah, I was reading an article about how big corporations use lobbyists to put pressure on politicians,
right?
And how they use clever tactics to divert attention and also to shift focus from one thing to another. So this quote: lobbyists have also long employed divide and rule tactics. So one shell strategy was proposed, part of something called Project Sunrise. It looked to differentiate interest groups into friends and foes. They built relationships with, obviously, the friends, and when it came to the foes, they made life difficult for them. So they just did whatever they could to put blockers in place and to make it difficult for them to maneuver.
Right, so corporations did that to the politicians.
And now to maybe other corporates or other groups, basically people who is an interest group. Maybe maybe Shell were doing something, and there was some. Maybe it was a Green Party group or whatever. Yeah. So this guy called Philip Morris, he put together a 10-year strategy for it, and that's what was called Project Sunrise. So basically, the intention was drive a wedge.
Yeah.
Between various anti-groups and position the antis as, guess what? Extremists.
What? No.
That's what you see. That's happening with Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, everyone loves that word nowadays. Extremist.
Exactly.
Extremist.
It's one of them words, isn't it? If you bring it up and you sound a bit credible, everyone's just gonna get scared.
Yeah. Why don't they just say the word terrorist anymore? You hardly hear it.
But you do when they talk about Muslims.
No, it's extremism, isn't it? Extremist Islam.
That's in reference to an ideology, but when they're talking about the people, they're the terrorists.
Yeah, I suppose.
Anyway, point of that is spin doctors are, I think, playing a game trying to make Corbyn look bad. I mean, we don't agree with everything he says, Jeremy Corbyn, but it's a hell of a lot better than all these guys. Anyway, moving on to the US of A. So, I was reading something about Ben Carson. He managed to raise $23 million in the final quarter of the fundraising year. I was thinking, what the hell is he going to do with that money? What was it for?
Well, in the last quarter, probably October time was the peak of his campaign, wasn't it? Where he was second just behind Donald Trump. And there was a potential that he may, because he was just as ridiculous as Donald Trump. He did seem like a bit of an idiot, so it's like, kind of a George W. Bush you can kind of see behind. Plus he's black, so it's like, oh look, our party's not racist. So, it's a black guy that they can get behind. And it makes sense, a lot of lobbyists, a lot of groups giving him money. But yeah, because he's out of the race, where does that money go? I'm interested to know. I'm
curious. And in general, what do these politicians do with the money that they get?
It gets
and who does it come from? I'm going to try to get hold of some statistics for next time.
Right.
But I'm going to hypothesize that particularly the mainstream parties, they're going to be getting big donations from certain places.
Right.
There's going to be few donors that are giving big money.
Yeah.
And that is only going to happen if there's some sort of interest to protect.
Oh yeah, of course. That's a standard, that's one of the things against Barack Obama. People who still support Barack Obama, they say, well, because he was righteous and had righteous intentions, but because he took all that money from corporations, $1 billion from corporate handouts and donations, etc. So he has to obviously, he has to do what the paymaster says now, doesn't he?
He's under the thumb.
Yeah, the paymaster is the real Illuminati. It's the corporations.
Yeah, we don't believe in the Illuminati, but yeah, whatever. Now, very quickly, just to finish off, some words on the Trump.
Yeah.
He might be happy to know that his current stuff is working, and Al-Shabaab are now using him in their propaganda material.
Al-Shabaab are from what country? Somalia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The terrorist group down there. Another bunch of wackos. And earlier today, he tweeted, Hillary Clinton said that it is okay to ban Muslims from Israel by building a wall, but not okay to do so in the US. We must be vigilant.
Oh, so he's just kind of really twisting her words, isn't he?
Yeah, and I've just got one comment. What a dick.
So what is Al-Shabaab doing with his...
I don't know, I dare not watch it, I'll be in trouble.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Well, who said that? Was it Trump who said that himself?
No, I was just saying that in jest. That, he might be happy with the fact that his
where did that news come out that Al-Shabaab is using...
Oh, I saw it on the BBC.
Right, okay. Did you hear about what happened with Bernie Sanders and his campaign?
No.
There's a bit of a conspiracy theory going on. So he, for a long time, had been a senator from some place that I can't remember, somewhere in America. And he'd been elected senator for a long time. But he was an independent candidate. He wasn't aligned to a party.
Right.
And so he obviously kept getting voted in because the people really liked him and he represented them very well, etc. Then when it come to running for president, he decided to align himself because that's the most likely way to get a name and, you know, to actually win. Then you have the DNC, Democratic National Committee, I think it is, who provide all the candidates with access to a database of the Democratic voters. And so, you know, these lot have a way of reaching out to the voters, and plus everyone has their own database. So you know, if you're working on Bernie Sanders' campaign and I'm working on Hillary Clinton's campaign, I get some phone numbers, I can input them, but you can't see them, etc. Now what happened is the company who provides the firewall kept messing up and putting the firewall down so the campaigns can see each other's files, which obviously isn't supposed to happen. Now, it happened 4 or 5 times, and apparently nobody had breached access until recently. It happened again, and one of the guys from Bernie Sanders' campaign went onto Hillary's files.
Right.
And he did it just for a split second or just for like 10 seconds or something. Then he apparently went off it, and he did it just to say, oh, look, stop messing up or whatever. That's the claim. What the DNC did is they banned Bernie Sanders from using the files, and they kind of cut his access to the database, which means all his data is on a database. He can't even run a campaign without getting access to that data. They shut it off for 2 days before they kind of let it back on. What Bernie Sanders did, the guy who accessed those files, he sacked him straight away. Then he started asking for a full inquiry. Now, it was a bit strange him asking for a full inquiry. He did this fiery speech, give us a full inquiry, and we want to get to the bottom of this and whatever. And at first I'm thinking, it was your guy who kind of did the deed. Why do you want a full inquiry? And then the information came out as to what really happened. So the woman who's in charge of the DNC who blocked him from his own files is a former aide to Hillary Clinton. Right? Also, the guy who they had to sack because he accessed the files, which is illegal, he was recommended by the Sanders campaign asked the DNC directly who should we get. They recommended this guy. Then they asked the company who provides the firewall for some information. Who do you think we should get, to work on this database for us? They also recommended the same guy. So what Bernie Sanders is saying, we hired a guy who you recommended, as in the DNC, you recommended this guy. He, does some illegal move.
Sabotage, it sounds like to me.
Exactly. And then you block us. And now we're asking for a full inquiry, and you said, no, we don't need a full inquiry, man. Don't worry about it. Shit happens. It's
all right. Here's your access. You can have your data back.
Yeah, have your data back, son. It's all good. But that story about the conspiracy is not out there in the media. Not many people know. What people know is, oh my God, Bernie Sanders guy did a naughty thing. So yeah, it sounds like sabotage. That's interesting. But anyway,
there's quite a bit to say about Bernie, and we'll talk about that in the next episode. And also Sandra Bland, who a grand jury has decided no felony crime was committed in connection with Sandra Bland. So the police force have been exonerated for what seems to be an obvious crime that they committed.
Yeah,
it's disgusting. Anyway, we'll end with this, and we'll touch on these topics in our next episode. See you later.
See ya.